Do we have a roll call vote?
Councilor Henderson,
Here?
Councilor Rovak,
Here.
Councilor Stubbs,
Here.
Councilor Kender,
Here.
Councilor Henderson, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's move then to approval of the agenda, and if you care to, the minutes of our March 5th meeting. Somebody care to make a motion? I'll make a
Mr.
motion then. No.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda for the City of Roswell Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, as presented.
Second.
Second. Moved and second for the approval of the agenda for today. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The agenda is approved. Can I have a motion for the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the March 5th, 2020 Finance Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second for the approval of the minutes of March 5th. Any discussion or all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, motion passes. All right, we'll move now to item E, the non-action items, informational reports. Monica?
Good morning, Chairman Henderson, members of the committee. So our first one, of course, was our gross receipts tax. As you can see, we are now 9 months collected, and right now we're a little $4 million in excess of our budget. So we collected 2.7 this month. Of course, we had budgeted 2.7, which was a little bit over on the budget.
Certainly looks good now. You guys remember, I'm leaving you with a $4 million surplus.
Thank you.
We'll note that in a minute. Our lottery tax report, going back to February 2020, we collected 83,800. We sent out about 19,000 rooms. Our budget for the month is 95,000. Our budget was 95,000, so we're a little down. But with 8 months collected, we have a 86,962 surplus in the account.
I think what we see there is the last 3 months for us, December, January, and February, did not meet our budget, so.
No, it did not. And as you can see, the purple line is our trend. We're right in between 18 and 20 at this point, so it's going down a little bit.
Well, according to my numbers, we're about 80,000 ahead of
Yes.
budget.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, okay.
Our convention center fee for February 2020, we collected 48,000. We budgeted 55,000. With 8 months collected, we've collected 464,588 so far.
Okay, any questions or comments for Monica on these 3 reports?
Mr. Chair.
Jacob?
So, at what point, if any, is staff planning on getting any kind of revised projections for the remainder of the year?
For the remainder of the year?
No, so, because obviously we're not going to hit our projections, our budgeted, April, May, June, those aren't going to hit budgeted. And what model, if any, how staff, what are we doing to figure out and predict what our shortfall is going to be in those months? Because, I'm not an accountant, but I'm going to guess we're going to lose at least a third of our revenue, if not possibly more.
Sure, we're looking at our first payment in May to be our first marker on where we're going to be, probably for the months ahead. I know Joe and staff is working on some projections right now, and we also have, I've also reached out to Tax and Rev to talk to the economists to see what they're going to put out.
Okay,
So-
any timeline on that information?
As soon as possible, I'm guessing, Joe.
Within the next week or two. We're going to have this information ready for the city council. If you'll repeat this so that the microphone.
Okay, so we'll have this information at the,
We should have some predictive anticipation of what's going to happen.
Okay.
at our city council meeting next week, yes.
Yeah, because like we've discussed, we want to make sure that we get as far ahead of this as possible. But it's hard without any, obviously it's going to be, like all budgeting, it's going to be future looking and speculative. But, we need to know if as Joe has asked for the council to help with this, we need that information to be able to
Sure.
to really kind of dig in that and decide what we're going to have to, where and how we're going to have to make cuts so that we don't so we can adjust with the least amount of pain as possible.
Sure, we're talking to other municipalities to see what kind of things they are doing budget-wise and revenue-wise, so we'll have some answers for you when we meet at council.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Monica? Okay,
I'm not sure what happened to my...
let's move then to the additional reports is,
So we have our investment report.
well, let's see, what we have in our packet is the internal auditor.
Oh, yes. So you'll have your department reports in there for, I believe, internal auditor, our IT department, our public affairs, our property. Those have been included in your packets for the last 3 months. If you have any questions for the departments, you're sure can reach out to them. We tried to keep it small, so not all of them are here. I do have Bill here if we have any property questions.
Questions of the committee on these reports. I noticed in our IT department, we're upgrading. I guess we've been in Windows 7 and we're doing some upgrade. We're upgrading to what, I guess, is my question.
I believe Jeff is in the building, probably
Okay, well-
behind the scenes.
Well,
We could
maybe
possibly
he
ask
can
that
come in
question.
and answer that
Sure.
question.
Windows 10.
Windows 10.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, Windows 7 is EOL at this time, so end of life. So no more updates, security updates. We're upgrading to Windows 10. There is no cost. We own the licenses for it. It's just a matter of getting out there and getting them all done.
I see.
We're close. Probably just a handful of 10 or 7 left. We'll be at Windows 10. So Windows 10 supposedly is Microsoft's last system. They say they're staying there and they're going to continue to upgrade that from now on.
So the transfer of information over from 7 to 10 is pretty easily accomplished.
Yeah, it's easily accomplished. It takes a little bit of time. It takes, depending on the computer you're messing with, 2 to 3 hours to get it completely converted over per computer.
Okay. Any other questions on IT? Thank you, appreciate
Look.
the heads up there. Let me
So-
see if I have anything else. We've been involved, I guess, with some negotiations on Bill Morris's favorite topic out there at A.O. Smith. Where are we on that? We did an RFP and it didn't work out.
No, we went through two openings. We're currently in negotiations now with one of the prospective bidders. We're seeing if we can work a few things out. This has kind of thrown some timing issues in the mix, but the intent here is to finalize that within the next week or so with respect to the bidder, and then we'll find out what our options are with respect to that second bid, and we'll bring it back.
One of the comments made by A.O. Smith's employee was that if it didn't work out on the sale, they would like to figure out a way for a long-term lease. Is there any consideration for that?
The intent why we pursued this was to eliminate that property from our list and put it back into the private sector for purposes of liability and maintenance and all the other stuff. They do have some issues out there with respect to the buildings that are going to take some money to fix. We prefer to be able to spin it off regardless. We think that whoever gets that property, they can still cut their deal with A.O. Smith to continue their long-term lease. And that's just the way that A.O. Smith has wanted it up to this point. So it's kind of a fluid right now, but we know where we're going with this. It
All right.
should be wrapped up in a week or two.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any questions of Bill
Yeah.
on that?
I'm sorry, back to the IT. I noticed on the report, it says that all training's been canceled. And I kind of feel like that given potentially people having some time, now's a good time to do trainings, especially IT. I know that my children participated in a program where they had multiple people doing training over the network, a Zoom type meeting. And so I would encourage the staff to don't cancel in this possible time. Don't cancel. Use this time to get the trainings done.
I think that he might be talking about any training for their group. But we do have some trainings going on right now, especially with respect to Tyler.
Sure.
So we have our go-to meetings that we are able to set up through in conference on our computers.
Okay.
And that's how we're planning to do some training. I think next is going to be budget transfers, and that'll be set up pretty soon with all departments. And we'll do that through go-to meetings instead of sitting next to each other.
What I was referring to in that is last month I put out a list of training that the IT department was going to do, and those training events have been canceled. They were Tyler Connect that Stephen was going to in Orlando, and I was going to an event for SunGuard in Vegas, and both of those have been canceled.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions there? I've been getting some emails on the audit for the Chamber of Commerce. Can you comment on that, or can Joe?
I'll refer to
as
Joe on that.
What we're going to do about that?
Thank you, Chair, Councilors. I had a conversation with the incoming president from the Roswell Chamber of Commerce yesterday. They are in agreement to get the audit completed. We will be assisting in getting the audit done. Right now, so both sides, we have not met in detail to try to determine which auditor we would utilize in order to get this audit done. Both sides are agreeable to getting it done, and we just haven't met because of the things move slower right now, and so we will be pulling that together and completing that work as well too. But had a good conversation yesterday with the incoming president for the Roswell Chamber. We're right on track in order to get that information done so that we can assure that our separation will go according to what everybody hopes it will.
How are they going to be able to operate without our funding?
Their intent, and I guess in early conversations when we talked about this, was to essentially, very similar to what we're going through with the budget as well too, when you see what our numbers are doing, we're tightening up our whole service model. The intent of the chamber is to shrink the size of what the chamber is doing to a size that's manageable so that they can rebuild out off of that. So a lot of the little things that they were able to do in the past because of they had the staff to do it, they will not be able to do. And so I believe the intent was to constrict their whole service model and then reset themselves so that they can manage with where they're at right now and then move into the future.
Okay. Questions of Joe on this item?
Who's the new incoming president?
Incoming president is Andrea Moore. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe. Okay, before we get to the investments, is there any questions or comments on any of these reports that we've received? Okay, we'll move ahead to the investments.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, right now we're staying about where we have been with the next 12 months of interest. Although some of the banks, and we've had to move some of the money around. Last week, I pulled $4 million out of Washington Federal to put into a different place because they were paying like under 1%. So I'm assuming they didn't want our money. So we're going to be going back and forth with those to make sure that we're getting the best for our dollar, especially in the times that we are right now. But we are showing that our next 12 months interest is still a little over $800,000 that we're planning to get. But again, we are watching that on a daily basis with our investment company.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Questions by the committee? Okay, well, we appreciate the foresight and putting this activity into place and generating some revenue for the city.
Yes, it's
A few years ago, we weren't doing this.
no, we weren't doing that, and we've actually, with the interest that we've incurred, it's helped with projects. It's helped with us finishing projects that may have, we needed to find other funding for. So it's been good for us at this point.
Good. Anything else from the committee? Okay, let's move then. I guess we're to item F, action items for number 4, resolution monthly budget amendment.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Judy.
I move to approve the resolution by increasing revenue and offsetting expenses in 3 funds.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve, I guess, this resolution for the consent agenda.
Yes. Thank you. But, Mr. Chair, I do have an
All right,
amendment, if
all
I
right,
may.
Okay. All right.
In looking this over, both the Finance Committee and I massaged this quite a bit. So I would like to move to amend the resolution first in its title in that last line by saying in funds, scratch the word 3, 1101, 2601, and 5100. Then in the second whereas, we're changing, requesting change the amount, total amount, I get, that's the total amount, in both revenues and expenses to $2,016,545. And then in the second bullet under that second whereas, eliminating whatever it said before. I can't tell what it said before. That's the donation.
Damage
No,
claims.
it's the damage claims, I'm sorry. Received of 31,711, we're eliminating that. So my motion is to approve those changes, or amend.
Everybody has a copy of
Yes.
what Judy's referring to.
Second.
So, all righty, I have a second. Are we on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, we're on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, the amendment passes. Now then, to the resolution. Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Chair, of course, this is our monthly amendment that we do, due to our new reporting system. Again, we have revenues a little over 2 million with expense at a little over 2 million for three of our funds. Fund 1101, which is our general fund. We had received some donations for the planetarium, about $5,000, and we also received damage claim for our parks vehicle, which was a little over $2,000. For the damage claim received for special electronics, that is $9,454, which is our Fund 2601. That was damage caused to an accident to one of our boxes on one of our signal lights, so we got that money. And Fund 5100 for the Air Center is a $2 million FAA grant for Terminal Building Phase 2.
Okay, questions of Monica on this? On the airport grant, it was for what purpose?
For our Terminal Building Phase 2. I don't have Scott here. I don't know if anybody.
Mayor, that $2 million grant is this parking lot?
Okay.
I believe that $2 million is the money that we received from the MAP grant for the, I think right now the parking lot is part of that.
Yes.
That process as part of the terminal. It was terminal.
Right, right.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Judy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just am going to reiterate again that I think it's really important to be more specific in the title of the resolution so they're easier to track. So that was the intent in that part.
And working with Counselor Stubbs, she's helping us, so we'll get there.
When I looked, it says general fund, and then we talk about donation to the planetarium, but I didn't, under 101, I didn't see, or 1101, I didn't see planetarium. I saw museum and art center, so.
They might have,
Did we break out? the
yeah, we
planetarium?
categorize planetarium. It's actually part of the museum, so.
Okay.
But we wanted to let you know that we actually got the money for the planetarium.
Any other discussion on the resolution? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, number 5, Special Revenue Fund, 6,000. You want to speak to that, Monica?
Yes. This is a resolution to establish a new fund, 6,100. This new fund would be a new special revenue fund for our internal services. So DFA does require general fund and our special revenue funds to be separate. Internal service funds are used to track goods or services shifted between department on a cost reimbursement basis. This fund is for facility maintenance department. So we're going to try something new this year, basically. We are putting facility maintenance in an internal fund that would be its own. So basically, what happens is if they go out and they work on somebody else's department, the department would be billed for their services. We're going to start with facility maintenance. There are other departments that we could possibly use the internal fund system with, but we're going to start there and see how it works this year in the new budget. So we have to go ahead and establish the fund first, and then when you see your budget in 2021, you'll see this new fund.
Questions on this?
Mr. Chair, thank you. It seems like this is going to be a bookkeeping nightmare, given the current status today with moving staff to different departments in order to keep them employed. Is that
Well, actually,
manageable?
yes, it is. It really is. The model is very good. We could probably send that out to you, but all the employees will be under the 6,100 for facility maintenance.
okay?
So they will actually be budgeted in that account.
Instead of all
They're
this shuffle.
yeah, they won't be all over
Okay.
the place.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
So we're moving the activity of what we're calling special revenue funds out of the general fund and creating a separate
Yes, a
designation.
separate fund.
So there's no, at the moment, there's no money
No,
involved.
No, not at all.
We'll just start designating
yes,
that as it happens.
yes. Most governments use the internal service fund for maintenance, for IT purposes, for public relations, any departments that serve the whole city.
So it's kind of an in and out deal.
Yes. And it'll give you a better picture of what we're spending.
Questions? Yeah. Roebuck?
A comment, thank you. From an information standpoint, I like this. The only thing I think we always need to be careful is creating additional bureaucracy that slows down our ability to serve our community. You know, if there's, for example, if there's a maintenance issue at a park, then it takes another 2 days to get the paperwork done, to get the approval, to get the maintenance people out there. I think that's the danger of a system like this. So I just think, I'm not saying we shouldn't move forward with it at all, but I think we just need to be very careful that we are monitoring how this affects our service model.
Sure.
That we don't want to add anything that's going to make slow down the bureaucracy.
You know, we've met with facility maintenance, and we all are on the same page, so, you know, I don't see an issue for that, but of course, we will be monitoring the situation, and if it doesn't work for us, then we will change it back. We just like to see.
Anything else? We're ready to.
We don't
vote.
have a motion.
Oh, we don't have a motion. No wonder we're not ready to vote. Let me have a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to send to full council on the consent agenda the resolution adopting a new fund for internal services, number 6,100.
Second.
With a recommendation to approve.
Okay, it's been
Sorry about
moved
that.
and seconded. Approval of the creating a new special revenue fund, 6,100. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, we're moving now to, I believe, item 6, resolution for boundaries for Main Street, Roswell.
Good morning.
Bill?
This item is a request to approve a resolution that would modify the existing boundaries of Main Street, Roswell. The current boundaries that you see are shown up there in yellow. And the genesis of all this request is basically the city and through Main Street did receive a grant for a potential project in the future. Unfortunately, the project wasn't in the existing boundaries for Main Street. So in working with Main Street, they recommended that we include the area that you see in the light blue down there in the southeast part. And so this resolution would codify the new boundaries to include that blue and would allow for the continuation of that project in that particular zone. Stand for any questions.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Morris, doesn't this have to be approved by New Mexico Main Street as well?
It does, but it's kind of a funny process. They kind of pre-approve you. And so we've had those discussions. This actually came at their recommendation to expand that area into that corner, to include that. And while we have We would like to move it in other directions. This is what they want us to stop at right now.
So then my question is, should we add to the resolve that we are respectfully requesting New Mexico Main State Street approve this as well? Or we don't need that because they've already done it?
They basically have done it, but I mean, they're looking just for a resolution of support from us
Okay. So
that outlines this particular thing. This is internal for their process.
Right.
But we have to endorse it, and so this would include that area that would allow us to pursue that project
Right,
in that quadrant.
right. But my concern was, it sounds like they put the cart before the horse. They did. So I'm not going to worry about the resolution.
No,
then.
in fact, they've already sent the planner, their own people down here.
Okay.
They've looked at this area, and that was, like I said, that's a recommendation to kind of carve that area out.
Okay. Thank
And we're
you.
good with that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions by the committee for Bill? Okay. Motion?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that we send this to full council consent agenda with the recommendation to pass adoption of a resolution of the City of Roswell, New Mexico, confirming the boundaries for Main Street, Roswell.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, we're moving now to a resolution for the boundaries of the railroad district. Bill, you want to explain this?
Yes, sir. Back in 2016, we approved the Railroad District MRA, which is a redevelopment area that basically follows the corridor of the BNSF Railroad. And so the original district is in the light blue. And basically it goes from 8th Street down to 2nd Street, and from Railroad Avenue, which is the first road over from the BNSF site, over to Virginia. And so at that time, there was a decision made to include future expansion areas of the MRA. There was a south one that went down to the Hondo, and then a north corridor that went up to a country club, and then over to Garden, kind of capturing that railroad area. But when we were looking at it, we wanted to kind of expand those districts to allow us some flexibility. Oops, I don't know what I just did. But anyway, you can see. I always do this. There we go. I'll use that one. Basically, so what we want to do is, originally the theory was that we were going to try to keep the redevelopment down solely along the corridor of the BNSF, but I think there's been a recognition that we need some additional expansion areas to help draw those folks starting from 2nd Street to be able to then pull them over towards the railroad district. So what we're looking for is to modify it as shown here, to allow for basically not only the original area, but an expansion of area number 1, which is the red area, which is number 2, which is the south half. It goes down to the Hondo and over towards Richardson. And then 3, which goes north and brings in just on the other side of 11th Street and brings in the museum. We think this will allow for a much more flexible development area, and also it's starting to line up with the Main Street boundaries as well. Not completely, but that's the intent, to kind of have them overlapping instead of having disjointed pieces. So this is in, this one's out. We just thought it would be a better fit, and that's, staff will answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Bill? Yes, Stubbs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks to me in comparing these two that we're cutting off a lot of what originally was, I guess it's north. By ending it close to the river on 11th Street, it appears to me in this that it extends further.
Because that, our feeling was that, I mean, the northern part, it's nice to have those geographic boundaries, basically the two rivers,
Yes, I
And so it's kind of
understand.
collapsed in within, so it's a little bit condensed, but it's also spread out in an area that we think there's the more redevelopment potential directly in there. And someday, if we're really successful and all that's filled up, we can always look to expand even further north.
So we really are changing the area that you're calling number 3, that is the orange part on the north on the original.
Number
So we're
3 probably is the
reducing
most
that.
dramatic because we do shrink it.
Okay.
And kind of pull it
That's
in,
what I
but then we
wanted to make
squeeze
sure.
it in to include the museum and the convention center areas through here. And we see the activity that's happening along Virginia as well
Okay,
with the hotel.
okay, so we're reducing the northern part. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Robert?
First of all, I think this is exciting and important, and especially adding that lower district. We have a lot of property owners in that area who are energized to create entertainment district, and certainly as we've all talked about so many times, it's important for us to diversify our economy on our little island of Roswell, New Mexico. And so I'm really excited that the city is adapting to where our private property owners are. As I'm looking at this, we're gonna be bringing in several properties that are of vacant buildings that are owned by private owners, of people who are actively working to revitalize those areas, and anything that we can do as a city to help them along is great. Obviously, this dovetails into the earlier resolution with the project with Main Street. But these are the kind of things that we need to be doing and staying on top of, even in the face of dealing with the coronavirus and stuff, so that when we come out of this, we can already be on track to being helping our economy rebound and come back. Because this kind of work that we're doing now is going to help us, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, when this is really going to matter. So I appreciate the responsiveness of the staff to the changing needs, and the private sector, in this case, there's again the property owners there that they've got vacant properties, and there's not piles of money, unfortunately, laying around for them just to do things with them, but they're certainly trying, and whatever we can do to help them out is great. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other comments? Bill, have we had much or any activity toward this redevelopment district?
We have sputtering. I call it sputtering. I mean, we had a property owner along Railroad who was trying to do some things. It opened up. There was a barbecue restaurant, kind of went away. Then the brewery kind of shows up, but not the full scale yet. But we feel that if we can start with Main Street and kind of draw people in that way, it just opens up the canvas a little better.
Now, we had a presentation last city council meeting in reference to bonding district. Now, is this something that this type of program, can that tie with what they were talking about in a redevelopment district?
Yeah.
Designating a tax area?
Yes, and that's something like what Las Cruces has done with their redevelopment, their downtown redevelopment area. It is a specific TID. Now, that's an existing area it was an old area. They had been working on it for a long time, kind of bringing back the movie theaters and the usual nightlight stuff. But they have created in Las Cruces a TID based on a redevelopment area. So it's possible.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm open for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend to full council on the consent agenda approval of the resolution modifying the boundaries for the Railroad District Metropolitan Redevelopment District to include attachment A and B.
Second.
Second. Moved and second for approval of this resolution for the changing the boundaries of the Railroad District Municipal Redevelopment District on the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, we're now on item 8, property disposal of fixed assets.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I don't know, Counselor Henderson, if you remember that years ago, we used to have to send a letter into our state auditor when disposing of our fixed assets at any auction. This is due to Section 1361 and 1362 of New Mexico state statutes. Well, they had changed the rule as to exempt municipalities. Well, now that rule has changed back. So now we have to, a committee has to approve the disposition. It doesn't have to go to council, and we have to have the whole committee sign that they are approving of the disposition, and we also have to send a letter to our state auditor, which is Brian Colon at this moment. So in your packet, you'll have a list of all of our fixed assets that's going to the auction this year, which we hope to still have in May, pending our issues now. So basically, that's what this is. So you'll see this coming back to you every year as we dispose of our fixed assets, any that are, we dispose of any that are worn out, obsolete, anything from computers to vehicles. We send to auction every year to dispose of. So this is what the request is for. So basically, today, if you approve this, you will sign the letter approving the fixed assets, the fixed assets list. You will approve that we are getting rid of those, and you will also approve of us sending to the state auditor the letter that we are getting rid of the fixed assets that we have.
Questions? Stubbs?
I have a stupid question. What is NMAC?
Where are you seeing that?
I'm seeing when you look at your first bullet up here, 13-6-2 NMS, what did I say?
NMSA.
SA.
That's New Mexico state statute, is what I'm assuming.
Then what is NMAC? Which is, it says section 2.2.2.10 of 2.2.2 of
I see that.
NMAC. It's on page 20 of the packet, the first page of the
I want to say that this is
letter.
part of our procurement code, but I'd have to check just for sure. It is.
I'm not familiar with NMAC
Yeah.
is my problem.
It's part of our procurement code.
Okay. Pardon me? Okay. I'll take your word for it. I just have, the only thing I could think of is New Mexico Association of Counties, and I thought they're not telling us.
Other questions?
I actually have a question about, so the wood chipper, I saw that it was in here that we're going to be purchasing, we're replacing that wood chipper. So is someone going to buy a burnt down, broken wood chipper?
Oh, yes, when we go to auction, most everything gets sold. They may want it for parts or anything like that, but we usually get rid of everything when we're there. We have very little left. The vehicles go very quickly.
Okay. Just curious.
Other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
And I certainly, with something like this that we didn't even have to look at previously, I hate to make more work, but for the staff on this, and I don't know what threshold, it would be great if there was some sort of even like 2 sentences or 1 sentence or half a sentence on especially anything over a certain dollar amount or anything newer than a certain year, because it's with you know, if we're supposed to sign off on this, as much as it's at one level, it's a formality, it's still, we're still signing off on, it, you know, so we've got like this $240,000 auto car with side loader that we purchased, you know, about 9 years ago. And so probably a regular thing, you know, I think it's one of these trust but verify kind of situations where I'm not doubting that this should be on this list.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's important, I think, for us, if we're signing off on something, to make sure we understand what we're signing off on. I assume that's the reason why they want us looking at this stuff, to make sure that staff isn't giving things away that they shouldn't, is kind of the.
That's the goal,
due
I believe, of
diligence.
the rule.
Yes.
To make sure that we are properly disposing of any of our fixed assets, which most of us go out to auction for.
And so, you know, I would love to see at least anything that had a purchase price over, and we'll just do a very generous, like $50,000, you know, or anything that is less than 10 years old. And again, maybe very appropriate. I think this is, I trust that this is accurate, but if they're asking us to verify it, we're gonna need a little more information in order to verify this, to make sure that it meets I assume the criteria, which is that we're not disposing of something we shouldn't be disposing of. I'd love any wisdom from those who have been serving longer, if they have an opinion on that.
Well, I think that, you know, the department makes their decision, I guess, then whoever the supervisor is signs off on it. We have our facility maintenance supervisor look at the items that are being considered, and you know, it's either obsolete, worn out, or unusable, or junk, in their opinion. How they reach that decision, maybe we can
Sure.
have an explanation of that
Sure.
as to their process of disqualifying these
Right.
items
Yeah,
for use.
even something like that, even if it was just a single word, obsolete, if it was a word destroyed, you know, because like the wood chipper, I wasn't familiar that we had burnt up a wood chipper, but that makes sense if we burn it
So,
up.
Counselor, our process in finance is that they have to fill out a fixed asset form, which does tell us, you know, if they're obsolete, if they're worn out, if it's junk, or, you know, what have you. But we definitely can add that
Yeah, again.
to our
I
report.
am confident that this has all gone through process, but
Yeah.
if we're signing up, even if it was just that one word, it's like, hey, okay, the reason why we're getting rid of this is because it's obsolete, or because it's outdated, or because it's end of life. Anything like that I think would be helpful, as opposed to us signing relatively blindly. Again, I'll sign this. I'm not worried about it. I do trust the staff.
Let's ask this, if for our next meeting, would you ask the appropriate supervisor to brief the committee on how the decision is made on the
Sure, we can do that.
dispersal, so that the committee will have comfort in the process. Judy?
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to note the date that they were purchased, and I think that sort of tells us a lot when you reference back to what the item is, and it's obsolete, period, you know.
Yeah.
So that tells me something.
Okay, can I have a motion on the disposal of fixed assets?
Is this a motion, or is it something we just sign?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Judy?
I move to this would not go on the consent agenda? Does this have to be done?
No.
It doesn't go to
Doesn't
council.
go to council.
Just
Okay,
has to
that's
be
what I
approved by
was-
the committee.
okay. So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the letter sent by the city clerk to the state auditor regarding the 2020 fiscal year asset disposal list. I have an amendment, but I'm going to make the motion right now.
And then there
as-
is another letter, a draft letter that we sign, that goes to the auditor.
Okay, both of them?
Yeah,
Okay,
need both of
as
them.
well as, thank you, Mr. Chair, as well as approving the letter from each member of this committee, or signed by each member of this committee, from the committee chair to, again, the state auditor for the state of New Mexico. Did I say to include the list? Is
Do I
that-
have a second?
Second.
And you want to amend that now?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I really think it's protocol to make the motion of what has been published, so forgive me, but I do, I still believe that. Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to amend the list of asset disposals to include from the Parks Department the rocket slide from the zoo. And I don't know how else to describe it. So that's my amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second for purpose of discussion.
All right, I have a motion and a second to amend. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this is controversial, and we've gone through a lot of discussion on this, but in lieu of the current situations of having to tighten our budget, and the fact that we really have no answers as to where to put it, and the bid has come in over our budget to refurbish it. We don't have a place to put it. It just seems to me it would better serve the city if we were to add it to this list and possibly get something at the auction for it. Thank you.
Okay, other discussion?
Yeah,
Roebuck?
I don't necessarily disagree with that logic, although I do think that something like that, since that was the decision made by the full council to fund that project, we should not, as a committee, unilaterally make that decision. I think it's a good discussion to have. Certainly, I think the Councilor Stubbs makes some good points, but again, as this is not something that is, this is not going up to council for approval, and council did approve the budget amendment that she's discussing, I think it warrants I simply don't think we have the authority to make that change unilaterally as the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Stubbs.
But I might add, Mr. Chair, that an awful lot of these that are on here were also approved at some time by council to spend the money for these as well. So I don't see this item as being any different than most of these on this list.
Any other discussion? All right, we have an amendment to the motion, so we're voting on the amendment. All in favor, well, let's say aye and raise our hands. In favor?
Aye.
Okay, one vote. Nay?
Nay.
Nay. 3-1. Motion, amendment fails. We move now to the original motion. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the list of fixed assets to be sold, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. So you need to circulate this letter to get everybody's signature.
Yes, sir.
All righty, public comments?
We are still working on our technology for the ability to ask questions from home. We have received no public comments at this point in time, so not a lot of public comment for now, but I would, because the public is still able to watch, you can submit your comments by email, text, phone call. We will report those to the city council as we meet in April. And so we accept public comment at that point in time. We should have the system up and running for the go-to meetings very soon here.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. I have a
Yes,
question.
Margaret?
Thank you, Chairman. Do we know how many people are watching these committees now that they're streamed?
I don't know if we have the ability unless they respond right now, but we can check. Once the go-to meeting app is up and operating the way we want it to, we will have a complete list of how many people are on there identified. So we have 4. We have
Cool.
4 right now, so.
And are we streaming on Facebook?
We are on
and
YouTube, Facebook, and yes, so. So, and then once we get the go-to app all operational and everything, they'll be able to participate back and forth, just like we did for the special council meeting.
Good. Any other questions of Joe while we have him up on his feet?
Joe, just going back to the budget conversation we had earlier, is it reasonable for us to expect within 2 weeks these revised numbers on all of our? I assume we'll need them for GRT, for lodger's tax, and for the convention.
Yeah, our aim will be within 2 weeks to try to get some information out there. We have been working for the last 2 weeks on what we anticipate will happen, and the challenge we've had with this is that it's a moving target right now. If you recognize the information that has been put out to the public, the President Trump said that social distancing guidelines may continue through the end of April. There is a study done for New Mexico for the governor that says that we will not hit the top end of the bell curve until close to the end of April. So we anticipate some other actions that may occur to impact whatever numbers that we are going for. But we have been establishing expectations of what we think will happen with the money as we move through this. And of course, everything we save today is essentially what's going to help us go through the July, because July will be that first month that we receive those GRT numbers based upon what is happening today. And we'll see, and I think as Monica had mentioned about with the finance, we will see May and June have some implication as to what's happening, but we won't know that until the July date. So in about 2 weeks, we should have at least our expectations so that we can deliver that information with options to the next series of committee meetings, and we'll get it out before, of course, with the 2 weeks. But that's where we're going to start to see exactly how we're going to constrict our budgets for now, and then get ready for whatever July and August, because we also know that once the economy hits that low level, it'll take a little bit of time for it to build back up as well. And we just don't know what that picture is. We're just hoping to get as close as we can so that we can carve with a surgical knife rather than a machete. So.
Yeah, and certainly, of course, we're gonna get a double hit with the considering the price of oil is going to, and we just need to be sober and ready for that as well, which may or not recover as quickly as the
Correct.
general economy.
Yep. And so, and I think you can see that, like the lodger's tax numbers where they're at, we are starting to see that impact of the longer term stay rather than the leisure travel. That's part of the reason why we're seeing those numbers shift. And so our goal is to have within the next 2 weeks at least some definitive information so that we can actually have a good conversation on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question. I noticed that the Hike It and Spike It tournament was canceled. That's 2 months out, a little bit out. So I was just wondering, what is the city thinking about the UFO festival, things like that?
Okay. And there has been no definitive decisions made on anything at this point in time. But we also know that our goal is to conserve on any funding that we have to get through the next couple months. And so At this point in time, and that'll be something that we'll be putting out here in the future, so you're going to make me share my pieces before we're all the way there. But we believe that as of July 1st, because we're going into a new budget cycle as well too, that is our grand reopening of the city of Roswell is what we hope, is that we're going to be able to start moving back to some form of normal by July 1st. We believe that we're going to postpone most of the city events, if not all of them, through that time frame, just to help us constrict on what our spending is. And then as we hit July 1st, that is what we're hoping to utilize as that grand reopening of the city. And unless something more happens within this whole virus system, that's our expectation, that's our goal. So in my mind, the UFO Festival, the 4th of July event, all of that stuff, the Galacticon, all of that stuff that is happening right there in July, we're hoping that will be that reopening of what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
To that point, you know, something, a difference about Hike It, Spike It versus UFO Festival. In order to participate in Hike It, Spike It and that whole organization, it requires early planning and stuff like that, whereas I think the UFO Festival is something that realistically, if we had to cancel it 2 weeks in advance, it wouldn't be detrimental to, you know, I think the people who participate in it would like us to try to make it happen if at all possible, and if we have to tell them 2 weeks in advance that we can't do it, that's not going to matter. Whereas I think with Hike It, Spike It, you've got people coming from all over the nation, you know, in having to put together teams and high level of organization and high level of commitment versus people just coming to the festival, which isn't necessarily.
And that's a good point. As we're learning more about, as we analyze who's attending our UFO festival, while we do get worldwide and probably galactic people to come here, we find that it is more of a regional type event. There is you can draw a circle around that, and the majority of the people know who we are, and they're coming back to just to enjoy the week with us. So we see that happening. We are working with all of our vendors, our music and everything else, and we're asking for a little bit longer delay because some contracts are due. Everybody, I will tell you, has been working well with us to kind of pull that closer to that day, because if the other shoe falls, we want to be ready in order to make sure, because we want to make sure everybody stays safe and enjoys that week. So.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Jason Perry is here today, and I have a present. In order to save money, I brought him a copy of our current budget. And so I'd like to give that to Jason. Do we have a date for our next meeting, or is that to be determined?
Yeah, I believe that the mayor will be announcing the committees and the chairs for the committees very soon here. Once that is done, we would hope that all the committees discuss what the best date and time is for their meeting into the future. So I believe that'll all happen fairly quickly, and we'll just rely upon everybody to help us get there. So.
Great. Mayor, did you have any comment or questions? Okay, well, I've been around here a long time, and this is my last day, and I go off the payroll at midnight tonight. So I was telling someone that I went to work for the city of Roswell April 1 of 1990, but previous to that, I'd served on the council in the mid-70s. So, you know, long time, and I've enjoyed most of it. So anyway, I appreciate the committee. Thank you for kind of going with the flow this morning and being in kind of an unusual setting, but we're making do, and I certainly congratulate everyone on their service, and it's been a privilege for me to be chair these last few months, and I've enjoyed that, and I wish you all well. I'll be around.
Thank you.
Actually, Joe's going to allow me to stay in my office for a few weeks until we get past this virus deal, and but I'll be out by the end of April.
And in speaking with the mayor, we intend to recognize Counselor Henderson for all of that time and commitment to service. We are just going to wait until we get through this emergency, and then we'll invite him in and do it right. So, thank you, sir.
You bet. Anyone, you have anything? Anybody else? Okay, we're about ready to close. Any other comments? We're adjourned.